Well, I'm joined now by BK Dabiri, the Senior Special Assistant to President Buhari on Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Matters. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Let's talk about human trafficking in this country, one of the big issues that you're very concerned about. How bad is it?
It's very bad. Just a few days ago, we were able to bring back 41 Nigerian girls trafficked to Mali. Now, it was a rescue mission by the federal government of Nigeria. We got the chief of air staff, the chief of defense staff had to provide a plane to make that possible. They had been stranded in Mali and they all just wanted to come back home. So the federal government, as instructed by Mr. President, has given the directive that wherever any Nigerian is trapped, make sure you get them back home. So we're glad we're able to do that with the military chiefs as well as the NAPTIP organization responsible for trafficked girls. And 6 suspects were also arrested. So they've been handed over to the police and will face judgment. So it's something worrisome, and we believe that the more you talk to parents, the more you talk to the youth, awareness needs to be raised to let them know that it's actually not worth it. Now, these girls that came back had been there for a long time. They didn't leave yesterday, but it'd been traumatic situation for them. I saw young girls, traumatized young girls.
What are they actually trafficked as? I understand that they're often, forced labor, prostitution, that sort of thing.
It's a combination.
Right.
Sex trafficking, labor trafficking.
Right. I mean, there is the issue of domestic servitude. Yeah. For example, in the UK, I understand hundreds of Nigerians are brought into the UK for sort of forced labor and that kind of thing. Well, what I'd like to find out, though, is does it run the risk of a clash between traditional culture and international law? Because in countries like Nigeria, for example, people use poorer relatives as domestic workers and are then accused of exploiting them on an international level. I mean, is it violating anti-slavery laws and domestic servitude? Or are we looking at a cultural clash?
Any child under 18 that is working with you is child labor.
Right.
Is it 18 or 16? Any child, below a certain age, that is child labor. But I want us to separate that. Sometimes you have relatives and all that working with you. I want us to separate that from trafficking them. As long as you are using them to make money for yourself, as long as the child is not working on his or her own, you are collecting the money on behalf of the child. Wherever that child works is trafficking. So you find that the big guys or the madams or the barons are the backseat.
Right.
Whether it's prostitution, whether it's labor, the fact is you're making money out of their sweat. And these are young children that should be earning their own money if they are working. So that is the definition, and that makes all the difference. A child can work at any age, but when you're exploiting that child, so we're talking about exploitation here, and we worry about the fact that Nigerian girls are being trafficked in many parts of the world. We just had a terrible case from Russia. We have from several countries in Africa as well as Europe, but this administration is determined that any Nigerian in the diaspora, whether you're traveling and get in distress, should come back home. And it's important to let them know that no matter how bad things are in your country, you're better off here than the trauma that you're going through over there.
How much is this trafficking fueled by demand in places like the West, for instance, for prostitutes and domestic servants and all that sort of thing?
Well, if there's no demand, there will be no supply. So the person who is involved is just as guilty as so if there's no demand, there will be no supply. So I agree with you, a lot of it is fueled by demand.
Right, you touched on this briefly, but just give us an idea what these trafficked people actually go through.
It's terrible. Sharing experiences, in particularly with the girls that have been brought back thanks to NAPTIP, NEMA, IOM, it is traumatic. I mean, one of them told us how she's told to urinate in a bottle, and then you drink somebody's urine. Or rather, somebody urinates in the bottle, and you have to drink that person's urine. And then they just torture them anyhow. Then a lot of them came back. At least about 4 girls came back with babies. I think about 3 were pregnant. They were impregnated in prison. Because what happens in Libya in particular is that once you're an illegal immigrant, you're locked up in prison. And the next thing is you may just be killed. So these ones that are back are the lucky ones.
The problem, of course, is that in a country like Nigeria that doesn't have a welfare system, you're always going to have problems like this.
Well, that is why this government is doing everything possible to ensure that the welfare of Nigerians is very well catered for. It's going to take a while because you've met a bastardized system. It's going to take a while, but the results will come. For instance, some of the girls that are back have already been enrolled in the federal government Empower program. Some of them are going to go through skills acquisition programs on the various states, on the NAPTIP, on the NEMA. So some of them, you know, are seeing hope.
Of course, the other vulnerable group that we've been hearing about, you know, sort of in the last few weeks are Nigerians and other Africans who are in South Africa. I mean, there've been talk about attacks, shops being, you know, destroyed, and the South African government not apparently seeming willing or able to protect them. How much does that fall under your province as Special Advisor to President on Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Matters?
Well, as long as it affects Nigerians in the diaspora, this office intervenes. And I've made my statement clear on that. The South African government has to be more decisive and must show political will to deal with this issue of xenophobia. It's okay, fight criminals. If you commit a crime, go to jail, be punished for it. But to indiscriminately attack fellow blacks because of the color of your skin is not good for Africa. Now, 97 Nigerians were deported from South Africa a few days ago. 3 of them are women. 7 of them drug-related offenses. The rest are migration offenses. Now, South Africa has withdrawn what you call the voluntary work permit, which they give to Africans in South Africa. They withdrew that work permit, and that makes it difficult for that trader, that vulcanizer, that mechanic, that barber, that restaurant owner to have a work permit.
So in other words,
so
you've rendered those people illegal.
No, they have.
Yeah, that's
so
what I'm
you
saying.
now rate them.
They've suddenly turned them into illegal.
And the rates are going on. They go to where they work, and then rate them and send them back home. So if South Africa is serious about fighting xenophobia, is one of the things they need to do. Those that are legitimately working, let them have that work permit that they had before.
While we're waiting for the South African government to take action, what is the Nigerian government doing to protect its citizens down there?
Well, the mission was actually on hand to do a great job. This particular attack, we haven't recorded, I think maybe 1 loss of life, but I can't even confirm that. But the mission was actually on hand in this particular attack that affected Nigerians in South Africa. The mission opened up the doors to Nigerians for refuge. They had 5 contact lines for distress calls. And, they were there with the Nigerians. And then the Nigerians defended themselves, too. You recall that the second demonstration actually failed because the policemen, for the first time, protected the foreigners. And then the foreigners defended themselves. They were armed with their own cutlasses and axes and all that, and so they retreated. So we hope that the police will guarantee, because they've promised Nigeria that they will protect the lives of foreigners in their country, so we want to hold them to their words. This is the first attack under this administration, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will ensure they do everything possible to ensure that Nigerians in South Africa or anywhere in the world are protected.
Okay, BK Dabiri, Senior Special Assistant to President Buhari on Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Matters. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.